capitalism, right?
As capitalism fit.
Yeah. No, I don't think so. This was a subject of intense interest to the Growth Commission that I chaired. And we had a meeting we didn't plan to have in May, late April, precisely because of the crisis. And we wanted to say, look, we wrote a report and had a whole lot of work done. Do we now want to say it's all sort of rubbish? Because we had a crisis and we really shouldn't do any of that. That's clearly not what we're going to say. But the following is definitely true. People who don't like, capitalism and markets, for whatever reasons, in many countries are sort of lurking around, and they were sort of marginalized in the past 30 years, and they're not so marginal anymore. They're going to return on the political stage. So the question is, what is the effect of that going to be? And the answer to that's going to depend on countries. But let me talk about the developing countries. I mean, if you talk to anybody, outside of China, where I think they don't really have this sort of debate in public, they have it private actually. They'll say, well, the balance is shifted. But we talked about this quite a bit, and I think the majority view right now, the one that will prevail politically, is the financial system, the advanced country financial systems, and especially the United States one, did not work. It has to be changed, and it would be a colossal error to sell the old system as a model. All right, that's gone. But the majority view is also that this was a problem in the financial system and not a broad problem of markets or capitalism in the real economy. And that stuff, for the most part, works pretty well. And so my best guess is that's how it'll come out. That we won't view the failure of a financial system, which admittedly is an important part of capitalism, in its unregulated, lightly regulated, fragmented form, and try to fix that, but not throw out the rest of the system. Now, there are going to still be differences among countries. There will be different income distributions, there will be different degrees of protection, social safety nets of a variety of kinds, and they may shift. I mean, my prediction for the United States is that in a global economy that's relatively volatile, you actually need more safety nets than you might have thought you needed in an earlier age, right? Because the volatility is greater, and the exposure to people, in these high-speed structural transformations that go on all the time at the microeconomic level is a good argument for increasing the social protection. And you might say, well, I don't want to do that. And the answer is, well, you got to do it because that's the price you have to pay to have a reasonably flexible economy. Which is the wrong way to do that. And Europe has learned this now, is to pretend to protect people by protecting companies and industries. That's a terrible way to protect people. First of all, it doesn't protect them very well. And secondly, it locks the economy in, right? It becomes increasingly uncompetitive over time. And over time, Europe has become increasingly good, most European countries, at not protecting specific companies, jobs, and industries, and instead protecting people, households, families, kids, access to basic services like healthcare and education. All the things that sort of matter to people are things you can deliver if you're willing to be sufficiently socialist about it, and not force yourself to deliver it through, the private sector, meaning the supply side of the private sector. Because if you do that, then you have to worry about whether or not they're going to be around, and that then leads you down the road of sort of saying, well, we can't let blank go out of business because there's too many people involved. See, we'd have a lot easier time, dealing effectively with the automobile industry if we had a decent healthcare system and a pension system that wasn't dependent on exactly those companies and whatnot. We're as guilty, as the next government in sort of kind of having a system that's not properly designed. Now, it's going to take a long time to fix this, but the Chinese version of that is they delivered everything through the state-owned enterprises. Everything. Hospital where you were born, school where you went to school, cemetery where you were buried. Everything. And then they said, you don't have to do that anymore. So they're now quite competitive. It's just that that hasn't been replaced by anything. So people out there don't have any health care. You know, the education's kind of dicey in the rural areas and so on. Basically because an old system went away and a new one hasn't replaced it. So in the Chinese scheme of things, a very high priority is doing a whole lot better at protecting people. And at those rates of growth, I mean, it's really important. It feels very chaotic day to day, you know, where people live in an economy growing that fast. Most of us have never experienced that.
Okay. Thank you very much.
No, I enjoyed it. Yeah.